Hello, ladies and gents, boys and girls, people of all ages, sexualities, and identities, and welcome back to another Doctor Who review. And today's Doctor Who review is none other than the 10th Doctor Adventures Volume 2. That's right, we're back with another volume. Some more David Tennant for ya. Right, so this box set is more about Tennant and Rose, so we can roughly guess that most of the events that happen in this box set take place somewhere between Series 2. Now, the first story in this box set is called Infamy of Zagros. Zaros. I'm most probably mispronouncing that. Someone butcher me in the comment sections for this, but right, so essentially the story is about a bunch of aliens who come to, of all places, Norwich. That's right, Norwich is being invaded in this story. And essentially Jackie's gone to visit one of her neighbours and her neighbour's daughter, and they're all supposed to be spending the weekend together. When all of a sudden a bunch of war hogs that look like Pumbaa from The Lion King have all turned up and have taken over Norwich. Now, at first, Jackie just thinks it's a stunt, but when she realises that they're rounding up the human race, she decides to call none other than the Doctor and Rose Tyler to come and help sort it out. The Doctor and Rose then point out the fact that they've already been there, and Jackie's completely confused of how this happened, how they managed to get in her best friend's flat so quickly. To which the Doctor goes, "Come on, Jackie, I'm a time traveller." And then they end up investigating into what's going on. And soon the Doctor discovers that it's all a kind of messed up plot in which a race that used to be peaceful has turned evil. They used to knit stuff and do a lot of stuff, but over time they became very bitter towards the universe, mainly because people like the Daleks and the Cybermen and the Centaurans are all seen as adversaries that can be taken seriously, whereas at the end of the day their planet just kind of gets pushed to the background. Till one day a TV company comes across to them and basically says, "Do you want to get famous? Well, there's one way we can do it for you. You go on TV and you slaughter a bunch of people from all different planets with real guns, whilst we give them fake guns, making them believe that they're part of the illusion." Now, when the Doctor soon realises this, that they're giving the human beings fake weapons and slaughtering them for entertainment, the Doctor gets very aggressive with them over what they're doing and is so frustrated to the point that he is going full Time Lord victorious for us on this story. Essentially, him and Rose begin to infiltrate the studio and begin to mess around with things. They begin replacing certain weapons with fake weapons, and then they manage to shut down the whole organisation. On top of it, the Doctor then points out to the race that now call themselves the Zaros, that essentially the Zaros would have been slaughtered eventually because every series, there's 10 series. They thought there was only 3 seasons, the Zaros. However, with there being 10 series, quite clearly this is not the only planet and not the only alien species they have hired to go and slaughter and massacre people for the sake of entertainment. When the Zaros realise this, they turn against the TV studio, and the Doctor and his friends manage to flee, leaving them to their own devices. The next story, the Sword of the Chevalier, is a really interesting historical story with a lovely bit of alien twist to it. The Doctor and Rose go back in time, and the Doctor becomes really good friends with the Chevalier, a transgender who essentially was born as a man and transitioned to being a woman. Became well known in the courts for being one of the greatest swordswoman who ever graced the halls of anyone out there. Now, the Chevalier, as the Doctor points out, used to have a kind of job as Secret Service, But nowadays they have been given a kind of injunction which only allows them to live in one place at a time and must live as the sex they had chosen. Now, throughout the course of the story, the Doctor, Rose, and the Chevalier find themselves up against an alien race who have essentially turned up on Earth to carter the human race off as slave trade. When the Doctor realizes exactly what's going on, he gets absolutely angry at this and points out to them that people aren't cattle, they are human beings, they are living beings, and they are worth more than that. The Doctor then has an argument with the three-headed figure and points out to them that if they think that there isn't a more dominant life form in front of them, then they should scan him. When they realise that the Doctor is a Time Lord, they decide to bow down to him and essentially do anything he wants. This is due to the stupidity in their piracy, due to the fact that their pirate code / criminal code of the gang they're part of means that they basically bow down to anyone who is, well, is a higher life form. The last story on this list is Cold Vengeance. The Doctor and Rose are about to go off skiing, and the Doctor manages to land them inside of a freezer. A freezer on a space station orbiting a planet. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the Ice Warriors have woken up and want vengeance for the human colony that came and took over the planet below. The Ice Warriors point out that at one point in time they ruled the planet as they took it over because it was uninhabited. Later on, the humans came and basically butchered a lot of their kind. They fled to the ice caves and a lot of them got suspended in cold animation. For a while they were dormant, and then one day, whilst on the space freighter, they began to wake up as the thermostat began to heat the place up. After breaking out of the ice, they pledge vengeance on the planet below and hope to shoot down a giant isomorphic laser that will destroy the people below. The Doctor and Rose do everything they can along with as many survivors on the space station, but it becomes increasingly difficult, especially as they have nothing to fight them back with. Eventually, the Doctor manages to slow them down by turning up the heat a little bit because Ice Warriors' suits aren't built for the heat. But on top of this, they try to point out to the Ice Warriors after finding out off of the girl who was only supposed to collect the bins that Ice Warriors still live down below on the planet, they just live in the slums. Not exactly the greatest existence for them, but it seems like the human colonies seem to have forgotten them. Our main Ice Warrior becomes very distraught after finding out this factor, especially after for so long he had pledged vengeance on the planet below. He decides rather than to go down and move on with his life that he will self-destruct his shell and destroy himself in turn. The Doctor, Rose, and the young lady who is helping with the bins manages to escape and go back to the planet below. The Doctor and Rose pledge that they will go and try and find a way to get justice for the Ice Warriors who are living in the slums, and hope that the young lady on the space station will learn to treat them with respect. So, the 10th Doctor Adventures, Volume 2. What did I think of this story? As a box set, I really like the dynamic between Rose and the Doctor. I have since I watched them back in the early 2000s. And the thing I really like is that they went back and kind of stuck with the things we know with this box set. For instance, having Jackie in the first story, perfect. Then in the second and third story, having Rose and the Doctor do what they always do, which is kind of get into trouble and have a laugh about silly things. I also feel like one of my favourite jokes is in the Chevalier story, in which the Doctor begins to try and boast to Rose that he is a brilliant swordsman. And when the Chevalier won't admit that, he kind of goes, "You're buying your own ice cream." I just thought that's a hilarious way to end off an audio. I also like how Rose kind of has that like it or lump it attitude by the end of the third box set. With this idea at the beginning of the third box set where she's kind of like, "Oh, You said we were going skiing. Why are we in a fridge? Oh, I guess we're here now. But overall, I definitely feel like Big Finish understands this kind of duo. I feel like the stories really show how much they understand their dynamic and their series as a whole. And for that reason, I give it a solid 8 out of 10. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next Doctor Who review. Until then, goodbye, stay beautiful, you beautiful people.